Welcome to the channel Tribe. In this session of virtual meetup, we are having Sounak Roy discussing on approach towards SAP testing.
So the next session is on approach towards SAP testing. So I was just checking before the session on the importance of SAP testing, and it's a multi-billion-dollar market again, and which is growing at a rate of 6.7% CAGR roughly till 2028. If you just Google SAP testing jobs on internet, you will find thousands of jobs in India itself and not only across the world. So this is a very important topic again, and we have a very expert speaker on this, who is Sounak. Sounak is a seasoned SAP testing professional. He has about 10 plus years of experience. He has worked with large corporate clients corporates like L&T Infotech, Capgemini, and IBM on major clients across Europe and US. Currently, he's working for TCS, and he's leading the SAP S4 transformation for a big UK retail giant. So I think he's the best coached on this topic. So let's invite Sounak on stage and deliver his session.
And a warm welcome to all the community members who have taken out a time on this Saturday to join us, on this journey of the virtual meetup. So thank you all once again, and let me share my screen. Okay, so I have made an attempt in this, to put it out into the slides. Basically, SAP testing. This is an absolute overview session, and this is not a deep dive session at all. So this is a huge topic, as Ashutosh already highlighted, and I have tried to take out a drop from the ocean and put it in the slides and present it to you as in a concise format, just to get you all started, because this is something which cannot be done in this timeline. So all the trademarks and service marks and logos, of course, those disclaimers are there. And I could not show you any live demo on this because whatever I have are basically either client or my organization IPs. Those are all those IPs which I could not definitely share. But I have put some Tcodes and some images which were available on Google, wherever. So things like that. Let's get started. We will quickly run down the agenda, what I'm covering today. So I'll be covering the basics of ERP. So what is an ERP for the inundated who are not aware about that? And then we will start with the SAP, have a quick check on the background and history and who SAP caters to, basically their clientele. And then we will jump into from the project management perspective, the stakeholders, the life cycle in SAP, and then we will check how the testing methodology and approach works in SAP. How is it different from the normal testing upfront? And then how to start, basically the transaction codes or the Tcodes, what they are, why do we need SAP testing, and then a few of the challenges we will try to highlight, and then what types of testing we can do with SAP. So there are a lot. At times, organizations choose, maybe one or two, or maybe three. People don't always go for the whole suite of the testing because it's really time consuming, as well as time is equal to money. So yeah, of course it is there. And then I will try to brief you over some business flow. There's a famous business flow that is the order to cash. For example, like whenever you are buying something from Amazon or Flipkart, so that flows gets initiated. So there are multiple business flows in SAP Tailor Suite. So I would try to take you through one of them. And then we will discuss few of the issues and over the ERP and SAP implementation, and we will try to see two case studies how ERP or SAP implementation has massively failed for those huge organizations or maybe their Fortune 500 organizations. So having said that, let's get on to the next slide. So what is ERP, anyone? Anyone? I have it already in the slide, but yeah, if anyone would like to take it. Okay, so basically ERP came into picture. Why? A small example. So for example, maybe you're onboarded into an organization. Okay, on the first day, the HR takes your name, your address, your mobile number, your date of birth, whatever, many details, they take it from you, correct? And then you submit that in a system. 10 days down the line, the payroll team comes to you to check you have not submitted all the details. Can you please tell me your bank details and all those things? So you again start filling from your date, address, mobile number, and then your bank details. And then you put it. Meanwhile, your address or your mobile number is updated. So you have to go to 2 different systems once again and change it independently on both the systems. So this is a headache for you as well as for the organization who is maintaining all those data, as they are becoming very redundant and you have to do multiple updates on that. So to solve that, non-integrated systems, we have this called as ERP, the Enterprise Resource Planning, which is a very much integrated system wherein all your financial applications or your HR applications, they are all integrated and they all use a common database or a common data server, okay, where all your details are put, and each and every organization can have its system access. They can go and check what data has updated, how it's all real time. This is basically the concept of integrated system, and here SAP, there are multiple players in the market, for example, for ERP, but SAP is one of the key players in this area of this enterprise resource planning, where they have tightly integrated this feature into their flagship product, that is the SAP. Okay. Yeah. So the characteristics and advantages, basically, you guys can go through this quickly. I have covered it a bit, but basically anything and everything. Maybe it's Forex transactions, or your GL reconciliations, or maybe your supervisor or line manager is asking you for a report immediately. So you can, if you're in ERP, you don't have to go into multiple other system and consider a report. You can directly, with few clicks of the button, you can create a dashboard out of all the data you have, because that's a centralized system for you. You have all the data there. You can quickly chalk out, the report from there and push it to your supervisor or your manager. So these are the few advantages. What we have this life cycle approach of creating a software or a software development or a template implementation. This becomes quite centralized in this. Okay, so now we are talking about SAP a lot. What is SAP? I have put some names. I don't know. Maybe these have auto-corrected. Systeme, Anwendungen, and Produkte in there. So, oh no, these are not autocorrects. This is in German. So this is a German-based company, and 5 IBM engineers who are working on a project alongside. They were told to shut down the project, basically, and that's what that was in the 1970s, if I can recall correctly. That's when they thought that, okay, they would move out of IBM and they would continue to work on their project. And they made something which we today know as SAP. That is, if you translate to English, it sounds as systems, applications, and products in data processing. So they are headquartered in Germany, and yeah. So SAP ERP, what is that? So again, it's a client server version. Earlier, they had something called as R2 architecture when they launched the product. That was basically a 2-tier architecture, what you would say. So they termed it as R2, and then they after a decade they moved on to the R3 architecture, whereas it was a 3-tier architecture then. And then recently, from 2016 onwards, as you can see, you must be hearing this buzzword HANA DB, and then HANA. So this is now their flagship offering, basically. And SAP customers are now moving from their old R3 architecture to the SAP S/4HANA suite, which is basically, you can say, an in-memory DB created by SAP, which gives you a leverage of, it was already real time, but now you have the business intelligence, the business warehousing, and all those at your fingertips. And something based on HTML5, that is SAP Fiori, which is also a product suite. Now this SAP Fiori and SAP S/4HANA, they are tightly integrated, and you get all these product offerings in sort of tiles, which I of course forgot to add a screenshot. Yeah. So, but this is basically it. So latest offering being SAP S/4HANA 2022. Now they are basically, earlier it used to be enhancement packs, but now they are putting it in each year with all those enhancements and versions. And this is gradually moving to the cloud. So SAP S/4HANA 2022 is fully cloud-based enabled. Okay. Okay. Do we have any questions of Ashutosh? Okay, I see one from Ayan. Ayan, I will come to this later, the question, of course, because this is a very good question, which I would like to answer it a bit later, or maybe it will get answered itself, within the slides. Okay, moving on to the next one. So a brief history, I already gave you guys. So they were like 5 engineers from IBM who moved out because their project got shut. They were quite angry. We all can relate to that, why they were angry if their project got shut. But they turned out $1 billion company out of their project. So that's great. Yeah. So now SAP caters to almost, at one point of time, they used to quote the best run businesses run SAP. So almost 99%, if not 100% of the Fortune 500 client definitely have SAP in their background, or foreground, or both. Salesforce is definitely there. Yeah, I do understand. We do get a lot of questions from clients also itself. Include Salesforce as well in the suite. But SAP with their latest offering from Fiori and HANA Cloud have gone almost head to head, I would say rather. Okay. So basically, this is the history which you can see. If you can see closely, I'm not sure whether the picture is quite visible or not, but now SAP has this sales, and so there are multiple modules, and then again in turn there are multiple sub-modules for each and every aspect. So for example, if I say sales and order management, this used to be sales and distribution basically. So this is nothing but like sales and distribution. So you're selling something and then you're distributing it to the client, like delivering it to your end client, and then getting the payments from that person or the organization, I would call it. So now in this 3 things, sales and order management, you could see like first department basically is selling, second department is basically delivering, and the third department is basically collecting the cash or the whatever the accounts receivable, as we say it in terms of SAP. So these are the 3 sub modules again, which is coming into like SAP sales order management. But again, the finance part, the billing part goes basically to the finance, which is again another module. It comes from another, it's sub module basically, which comes from another module, which is the financial and reporting, or the FI, how we know it. But then again, it's tightly integrated with sales and order management. So there are multiple integration points, and this is the charm of SAP, wherein this business suite basically bundles all your different business applications. So be it HR, like from earner creation, how we call it as employee creation. So earner creation to sales to distribution to billing, and again to reconciliation. Like for large organizations, there are tax constraints, there are tax structures. US has their own reporting, Europe has their own reporting, and then you have this all coming up with AGMs, the annual general meetings, where the companies have this closed periods and all those things. So with few clicks, not exactly few, but yeah, maybe a few more clicks from your SAP business suite, you can actually get out the report. And now with HANA in place, you have this business intelligence and business warehousing as well. You can even see where your company has fared well, what they have done well, what they have not done well, if they should cater to some more products, if they should eliminate some product from their product lineup. So all these things can be now done with just your single instance of SAP. Okay, and this is really scalable. It can cater to a small organization with even around 500 people, to even if you have more than 100K or 200K folks as well, and you are catering to customers worldwide. So this is very scalable, and functionality it's a vast. They have a huge portfolio, and SAP is adding each and everything, whatever you could think of, even in their continuous upgrades. And of course, it's highly customizable. So this can be tailored. So they have their own vanilla version, of course, but it can be again tailored to your own industry needs as well. Okay. Okay. So moving on to the next. So this is just a few selection. So basically, industry solutions. like SAP caters to aerospace and defense, automotive, banking, as you can see, and then life sciences, high tech, higher education, media, mining. I myself have worked in most of this industry projects, basically, be it short term or long term. And then you have some specific industries as well. For example, utilities, retail. So SAP has some solutions that they call as like, IS, industry solutions. And then you have ISU, industry solution utilities, industry solution retail, ISR. So these are very niche and core models of SAP, wherein they are catered to specifically implemented in those organizations who deal with those particular product lineup. Maybe the retail, for example, maybe Shopper Stop, we take, or so they mostly cater to those product lineup, like the clothing lineup. So the retail could be tailored for them or customized for them. So likewise, for utilities, maybe if we take Tata Power, or someone who is serving, like maybe some water company as well, who is at the end of the day delivering like the electricity or water or gas to our households. So for those, you can use IS utilities, industry solution utilities. So those are very much tailored. They could be tailored basically, and they have all those core. How can you put it? Like core industry specific subject matters, which they already know, and they have imbibed that in their modules. So again, they can be, like for example, ISU solutions can be again tightly integrated with sales, because you are again selling that product lineup to some household or something, right? You are maintaining a business partner for that person or the organization, and at the end of the day, you are taking payment or you are billing that customer. So all these things again can be tightly integrated with SD and FI, and solutions, industry solutions, maybe sitting in between. So again, different modules tightly integrated together. Okay, so now what are those stakeholders in SAP? So basically, this is basically stakeholders in SAP in the sense from a project management perspective, who are overseeing the project and who are monitoring the project, and anyone and everyone. Like for example, you are the manager. I'm just a tester. Maybe I'm testing, and someone is even developing. Like the vanilla version is already there, but again, you need to tailor some specific areas. Maybe you have some cash sales or some rush orders need to be created, so that you are tailoring according to your business needs. So the developer for that instance. So each and every person, basically, how we call it, are all stakeholders. Whoever is working on the functionality, solving the issues, or rather raising the issues like us, and then again solving the issues, and managing those defects life cycle, managing the development life cycle, managing the testing life cycle. So each and everything. But in SAP, for example, in Core to SAP, so we have two main fundamental areas. For example, we have a functional area and we have the technical area. So the technical area is basically wherein you are seeing the codes. So you can go into the backend of the SAP and write the codes, for example. So it could be a customer exit, it could be a user exit. I'm not getting into those, what the customer exit, user exit, because those are like very deep down terms. Just on a high level, you can think of as a particular programming, or maybe a sort of programming sort of thing. So those exits are maintained or updated by ABAPers, whom we call it. So it's an advanced business application programming. So they come from the technical perspective, wherein they do the backend coding or the white box things. And then you have these functional guys who are basically checking in the front end, how the functionality should look like, what screens should be given to the end user, whether all the fields are needed, like maybe you are trying to do a purchase order, or you're trying to create a sales order. So how many fields for that instance are needed to create that sales order? Are all the fields given by SAP needed? If not, then they can hide those fields. And opening the posting periods, and closing the posting period. For example, you have opened the posting period for this month instance, and once April ends, we are in the May, you have to again open the May posting periods, and you have to close the April posting periods. So all these things are taken care by the functional people. And in ABAP, we also have something called as the basis team. So basis team basically handles those like the transports, whatever change requests you are doing in maybe your sandbox or development server. You're moving it to QA and via transport, or you're moving it to, at the end of the day, maybe production, or at the end of the week, production server. So all those things are taken care of basis, along with your accesses. So like role-based access, maybe a salesperson should be only, allowed to create sales order and not a purchase order, and not even do a billing, or only the accounts team should have the billing, and then there are multiple level approvals. So all these things are taken care with the basis team. And then we have this functional team, so the basis team and the ABAP team, and then we can have testers. But testers these days in SAP testing area has basically evolved from testers to be more of a subject matter experts. So for example, if you take my instance, so I am working like from day one in SAP testing, but I am now functionally equipped with the sales module. So I have acquired a vast knowledge of the sales area, and also some other modules, for example, the ISU and ISR we spoke about. Why this is needed? Because we will talk in the upcoming slides. Okay. So the SAP life cycle, how it works. So we have there is something called as SAP methodology, which SAP has formulated. That's the accelerated SAP methodology, and this basically looks like the project preparation, and then the business blueprint, the realization, final preparation, and then the go live and support. And then you have this continuous change where you do some retrofits, you put it back again to the system, and the cycle continues. Now where testing comes into picture. So since now we have a shift left approach, and this is going on for like many days or years for that instance, I would say. So you start early. Why you start early? Of course, that's the best part, when you can uncover whatever gaps are there and what maybe gaps needs to be filled. So for example, in the project preparation phase, you are deciding on the project goals, the scope, and then maybe the timeline which has been defined by the project. You start with that, then okay, fine, so this is the scope. I should be writing the test scripts for that scope, and of course I don't know the full system at that point of time. So what will I do? I will use my knowledge. So that's what, like on the last slide which I spoke about, that subject matter expert sort of thing, the SME sort of thing, that comes into play now. So maybe okay, fine, I have worked in an industry solutions utilities project, now I'm at an institution retail project. So definitely there's a huge difference between utilities and retail, but the core functionality of the SAP remains same. What needs to be created. Okay, we have to create a customer, we have to create a business partner, we have to assign the partner to a partner function, we have to create some vendors, we have to create some materials which needs to be sold, we have to check the pricing conditions, and likewise. So all these are very core functionalities which will definitely be there. So what you will do, you will write a high-level architecture or a high-level test cases based on those technical design in the project preparation phase. Now in the next phase, when the technical build is actually happening, so again, unit testing is mostly done by, of course, the developers, correct? But during the business blueprint phase, when you do a fit gap analysis, you can actually see what actually fits. So for example, you have written test cases, and then you see that, okay, fine, this test case fits. Once the blueprint phase has been done, you see, okay, fine, this out of my test cases, I have written maybe 10 test cases. Out of those, around 8 now fits the bill, and these 2 are now redundant, so I can just move them. So likewise, you can do a fit gap analysis at the end of the business blueprint phase according to the SAP. So here, and then again, when you jump to the technical build part, you can create your own unit test cases. Developers can run that, but in most of the SAP testing projects which I have handled, it's basically the testing team, because the testing team is also comprising of SAP functional experts only, just a bit more enhanced on the testing side, or they are wearing those testing hats. So they know they are not interested, they are more interested to break the system rather than make the system. That is work of the functional team who are working on that. So this is also functional test team which we are talking about. So they are more inclined on doing the unit testing as per the FSDs or BSDs, the functional specifications or the business specifications. Okay, they are doing. In the realization phase, basically, whatever this blueprint phase has given and the project preparation phase has given, we consolidated that, and then we do sort of a cross-functional, or what you can say, a sort of integration testing. So basically, it could be a big bang approach, because maybe till now all were working in silo. The sales people were working in silo. The materials management people were working in silo. They were creating the materials, and the finance people were working in silos. They were creating all those GL accounts, those reconciliation accounts and their asset accounting, all those things they were creating in silos. Now it's time for a big bang integration approach. So here in this thing, you will have your system integration tests or integration tests in general, where you will try to stitch that end to end. So whatever you have written as a standalone test cases, now you will try to stitch it and make it as an end to end test cases. And of course, in this phase as well, so maybe you are doing this for a second time. So the first rollout or the first global template has already been done for maybe Germany. Second rollout, you're doing it for maybe Finland or some other European country. So at that point of time, whatever changes you're doing for Finland, whether does that affect Germany, if that needs to be as well tested. So then regression testing also comes into play when you are doing this same realization for a second time or a concurrent time, or likewise, like second time, third time, fourth time, likewise. So this comes into picture then. So then you should do integration as well as a regression testing. In regression, of course, you can do an impact analysis then, like what changes has been made, how that impacts my earlier rollout, which has already been go live, what areas need to be tested, and you can test your business critical scenarios at that point of time. So that again, with a conjunction with the client, you can check that and do that. And then finally the transportation happens, and in this phase only the end user training also happens. So end user training is basically when we have something called as key super users or super users who are sort of representing the organizations and SMEs from the client side, or from the how you can put it, like whoever is implementing that SAP from their side. And this person will in turn now train the end users whoever will be using the SAP system, because once you have implemented SAP, each and every employee in your organization would be using SAP as their day in day out system. So someone needs to train them, and this key super users or super users who have been involved with solution architects, the functional experts during this blueprint and the realization phase, now they will take the ownership of training those people on their different individual modules. So while the transport is happening, from if it's a first time, of course it's going to first go live, and if it's like if the transportation is happening for the subsequent times, then it's going from like the QA to the production environment. During this time when the transportation is also happening, the training should also be done. Okay, fine, we were doing like we were creating sales of like this, and these were all this order types. Now we have changed some order types. So for this type of clientele, you should use this order type and that order type. The pricing should now look at this. You should be checking those output taxes and for freight borders and all those things. These trainings should be inculcated or made PPT and made available to all the end users who will be using the SAP. And after that, you have this post go live support. Like once you are done with your system, which has been live, you have to still support it, considering there could be tickets like L1, L2 tickets, as we all know in IT. So those tickets needs to be catered to, and then from there on, a very important thing comes into play, that is called as change requests, the CRs, because whenever you do whenever it goes live to all the employees in the organization, people come up with some ideas, some things which can break the system, or which can help if we implement those changes at a later stage to make the business more smoother. So that change requests are then again implemented, and then that change request again flows through this whole cycle of creating, retrofitting it where it is possible to retrofit, testing it, doing a sort of regression, and then again a smoke, and then finally transport it to the production server. Okay, so this is basically in a nutshell SAP life cycle, wherein I talked about the testing approach. So as you can see, which I talked about here, it's there. So requirement specification. So whenever we are doing from the testing perspective, basically, so yeah. So acceptance test, or the user acceptance test, when we are doing this at the end with the business users, with the key super users, then whatever requirements has been agreed upon during the project blueprint, this will be tested against those. So we will have a separate set of tests for a user acceptance test. But this can be also your functional test or the integration tests, just tailored a bit to cater to the user acceptance test. So they will basically, for example, you have a sales key super user. That sales key super user would now use his ID instead of a test ID, of course. And that ID you have already tested somewhere in integration testing. So you have checked already the role-based testing. So role-based testing is also very important, which you should also consider while doing integration testing, and that you can do alongside whenever the system is being designed. So this is the testing methodology approach. It's a V methodology approach. You of course can include agile, and nowadays most of the clients are preferring agile, short sprints, basically maybe a 4-week sprint, wherein all the stakeholders involved are actually doing the development, checking the functionality, raising defects, and then again shipping that particular workable product into the next phase of the cycle. And then this iterative approach, continues, wherein you have then the model is built module by module. So this could be also one approach, and you also have the traditional waterfall approach, of course, as well for the SAP testing. So you can go either ways with whatever best suits you. Or you can even have a hybrid approach wherein you are using waterfall to a certain extent. Maybe for the system integration testing and the user acceptance testing, you are putting as waterfall. And before that, like maybe the unit testing and the sanity, all those things, you are doing it in a agile mode, wherein whatever is being developed is being tested and reported instantly. So whenever it's coming to system integration testing, there is very less chance of things going wrong. Correct? Okay. Now the best part. So what is Tcodes? So earlier, prior to HANA, okay, now some things are basically theory based, but prior to this, SAP had this GUI, so graphical user interface, wherein if you can see this box here, you had to key in the T code. Okay, and then these T codes basically are transaction codes, which will directly take you. You can even navigate from the easy access screen, but this will directly take you to that particular page or module, how you call it. So whatever the transactions, like for example, now SAP have a good nomenclature, they have maintained it through and through. And this basically in turn, like whenever you are talking in an SAP lingo, SAP testing lingo or an SAP functional lingo, so like, okay, fine, if I can see there are VAT codes or there are VFT codes, okay, this is the part where we need to go, and these are the modules, so these are the functionalities which we need to cater to. So all these things are there. So for example, financials start with F, and then sales and distribution starts with V. So now sales and distribution definitely have sales order as well as billing. So you can see in sales order that starts with again VA, and billing starts with VF, because it's a combination of sales as well as financials. So this is how SAP keeps their nomenclature. So for each and every, so for example, for plant maintenance, for material management, or for any other new modules, even whatever they are implementing, they are following a standard nomenclature approach. So a T code is basically broken down into two parts. It could be like, for example, if I talk about, I will go to the next slide basically. So as you can see here, VA01. So it's basically part into two parts. So VA tells you which module or submodule it's coming from, and then the 01 tells you what it intends to do. So there are basically three parts or three ways for each and every transaction basically. So either you can do a creation, first you create it, then you, if needed, if you need to change or amend something, you go with a 02, and if you just want to display what has been created, you can go with a 03. So for each and every transaction code, like maybe MM01, if we consider, so MM01 we are creating material, you are changing material for MM02, and you are displaying material for MM03. So this in turn becomes very easy to follow. So okay, fine. And accordingly also you can put them in the test cases, like, okay, fine, this part, once the sales order has been created, I will just go and display the sales order and then take a printout of the sales order. Okay, so you don't go into the change mode. If you go into the change mode, for example, so maybe I am using a system, the system I'm using right now, and I have created one sales order, VA01. I'm now accessing that sales order, maybe sales order 1, 2, 3 in change mode, VA02. If I'm accessing that sales order in VA02 mode, you from other system will not be able to access it in change order. You will be only able to display it, because this happens all in real time. And if you have locked it, for instance, or maybe you have opened it in change mode, that stays as locked unless you save it and close it or go to the transaction. Okay, so this happens for most of the cases in SAP. You have to have like use this change things and multiple paths. If you have some tables open, some transactions open for that example, some background processing opens, so that point of time nothing will run basically, because you cannot do any action once you have opened something in the change mode. So once you create, If you just want to display something or view something, you just want to check the order number, or you want to check the confirmed quantities, you always should go with a display and not with a change. Change is only something when you really know and that you need to change something in respect to that. And also, all the details when changed does not flow into the next subsequent document, because SAP has sort of a document flow sort of architecture, wherein if you are changing something, it depends on the copy control, of course. That's again a huge chapter. I'm not touching that, but yeah. So in copy control, you can actually talk about make ways of how the configuration should do, like what if you are changing something, whether it should flow to the next system. For example, you have maybe a purchase order reference in a sales order, but if you're changing it now, whether it should flow to the delivery documents, or whether it should flow to the billing documents, the subsequent delivery and billing documents. So that can be again checked in from the copy controls. So yeah. So that's it. Now the needs for SAP testing. So we were talking about this SAP testing, why I should do it and all those things. But why do we need it, the SAP testing? Primarily, of course, we need testing. Why? To ensure sanity, purity. But in case of SAP, since you are doing this as an activity for an organization-wide change, so this change here, the advocates are everyone, like from your CEO to the last end user who is using this product. So they all should be on the same page. Whatever business decisions has been taken at the senior most level, that same decision should flow till the last level. So that makes SAP a very high dependency on those application front. So that's why testing is of utmost importance. And then again, introducing business users, and then different users from different parts of the world will be using that system. So all those safety nets should definitely be not compromised. And then again, for example, you are again working in US, I told, or you are working out of Europe. Those have different taxation systems. So your system should be tested from a pricing perspective also, that in US you are calculating your taxes properly, in Europe you are calculating as per the Europe standards and not as per the US standards. So minimizing the risk to business, that's one important, because then if not calculated properly, you will start losing out dollars, and it could be then thousands to millions to billions even, because if your SAP system in a production is not calculating your taxes or your freight borders accordingly. Maybe you're importing something to Japan, exporting something to Japan, but you forgot to calculate the duty or the export duty because your pricing condition has not been tested properly. So that will be an immediate loss, and it could be something which could be irreversible. So that's what one of the things needs to be tested for the business front. And then again, the solution complexity. Why? Because since this different modules, for example, sales and distribution, materials management, which we're talking about, you all are now familiar with that. So since these are very tightly integrated to each other, and you are all sharing these all are sharing the common database, and they're sharing the common data into this. So it's really needed that you check whether, okay, fine, if I'm creating a sales order, whether all the data that's needed is flowing to the next subsequent document, maybe the delivery document. You should not miss out, okay, fine, I ordered 10 items, and now in the delivery, I could see only 6 items. 4 items have gone somewhere else. You don't know why, because they must have been blocked somewhere, or customer had not enough credit to pay for that, so that's why the system has blocked it. So all these things should be checked. And maybe, for example, you have some customer who is required for a credit check. This happens a lot in US and of course with the business organizations. So you need to check that whether this customer has done a due diligence, has a credit check, and you can sell that customer and you will not incur a loss while selling. You will get back the credit, you will get back the accounts receivable on time. So that's also is something which can be maintained. And again, there are multiple things like vendors, the pricing you can even create. Like for example, for the first quarter, or maybe during the Christmas time, you have maintained a price of a product to go up or down depending on the thing. And since once the 31st December crosses, from 1st January you will have a new price. So you don't have to go into into the system on 1st January and make those changes. You can very well in advance have this business decision, put it into the system, and have that tested. across on that solution front, whether those things work, basically. So these, and there are actually chapters and volumes of needs of SAP testing, and this again differs from different arena. As in, like if you are implementing for a manufacturing client, your testing needs would be different. If you're doing it for a retail client, your testing needs would be again different. Of course, the pillars would be same, but the building blocks of those things will be definitely different. And then again, it depends a lot on how customized that SAP is. So for example, maybe client A is preferring a vanilla version, because their business is quite tailored. So then they don't need much customization. They don't need to much pay the functional consultants much on the higher side, because functional consultants charge a lot. Okay, so they don't want to pay that much. They want to go with the vanilla version of the SAP, and they will tailor their business according to SAP's system. But on the other hand, if you have a Fortune 500 client, they don't have that much stringent budget. They will again try to customize SAP as per their business needs. And that point of time, functional people would change a lot of part in the systems, and that definitely needs a rigorous testing, because whatever has been now changed from your old to the new tailoring, that definitely calls for a testing. And also SAP recommends, for example, you saw this Tcode starting with V, M, and all those things, but you will never see anything starting with Y, Z, because SAP recommends if you are creating some custom solution Tcodes or custom Tcodes. For example, VA01 is there, but you can even make a ZVA01. So if you're making a ZVA01, that means that you are trying to create something. You have made actually a copy of that VA01 in your ABAP programming, and then you are trying to make changes and tailor suit it according to your client needs. So you have marked it as ZVA01. Why SAP recommends Y and Z in the subsequent like rollouts or subsequent upgrades whenever SAP is doing one? This Y and Z will not be touched, because they have specifically marked it for your for you to do customizations. So upgrades will not nullify this. But if you want to make some other, it's a high chance that SAP has done some changes, and this changes would be erased. So these is also like, there are a few of the best practices which has been recommended by SAP, and those best practices also should be taken care while you are preparing for your SAP testing, test strategy, test planning, and all those blueprinting sort of things. Okay. So yeah, I think we spoke about this testing challenges, how technology changes and this new business changes. The compliance is there, of course, from like we talked about the taxations in US and the EU, all those things. So there are customer dynamics. Like for example, someone wants to meet to the standards what SAP is providing as a vanilla. Someone wants to, okay, no, fine, you SAP have to make the change, and that my business should fit once only the changes has been done in SAP. So they are hiring functional consultants externally, or making an in-house development team, or giving out to the vendors, however it is. So all these things are there as an SAP testing challenges. Okay, but yeah, before we move on to the types of testing which we can do, are there any questions? I don't see any. Okay, so moving on to the testing parts, so which we have talked about already. So there are a huge portfolio of testing available for SAP applications. This is just to name a few, but you can think of anything. Like for example, in security, you can even do a GRC testing. That's nothing but governance, risk, and compliance. In portal testing, whenever you are using SAP Fiori, you can see whether it's working in all the Chrome browser, Mozilla Firefox, or even rather for your iPad or your Android tab. Whatever. So this way, all these things, like for example, unit testing now. So if you talk about unit testing, this is basically done by developers. But here it's an interesting concept. So something called as RISE-FW. So those are basically reports, interfaces, conversions, enhancements, okay, and workflows. So all those things you can actually check while you are doing a unit testing. So these are mostly done by developers. Unit testing, as we all know in testing, in SAP, these are done either by the functional team or by the functional testing team. So either it's functional development team if they have bandwidth. If they don't have bandwidth, it's the new project. They have to do a lot of developments. Then definitely this will be shipped to the functional testing team, wherein they can even, you get a second opinion also as well. What has been developed, whether they are matching the requirement documentations and all those things. Again, if you talk about integration testing, this is basically done in, so this unit testing is basically done in the sandbox or the development environment. Integration testing is definitely done in the QA environment. So whatever you have checked in the unit testing as a part of unit testing from the development perspective or the functional perspective, those all will be now transported to the quality server. And in the quality server, now you would do an integration testing. So in integration testing also, you can have some role-based testing, or you can just even check the functionality testing. So you can just check, okay, fine, with the test user ID, you are checking all the functionality, whether they are working or not. Or you can even do some role-based testing where you are checking, okay, this role is supposed to do all these things, whether this role is able to do something else apart from this or not. So that also could be included in your integration testing. Regression testing we talked about whenever there's a change request, or you have made some, or SAP for that instance has made some upgrade. Each and every year now SAP is giving an upgrade to their latest suite. And also in earlier stages also there were enhancement pack upgrades. So that enhancement pack upgrade, if something has gone wrong or not, that also before you are implementing that patch, or before you're implementing that upgrade, or before you're upgrading to the next version of SAP, you should do an impact analysis and do regression accordingly. Also for all subsequent rollouts to your global template, you should also try to do a regression testing. Performance testing, of course, you should check, like, because maybe people at 10 places in the world are creating a sales order or creating doing a simultaneous billing and at real time. And performance testing will definitely give you all that numbers, like how much bandwidth or how much memory you need to put it into the system to come to that thing. And again, also they will recommend as a best practices, for example, that few, like for example invoicing, you will do a collective invoice, like for example at the end of the month, for this client or the sold to party in SAP terms, we will bill at the end of the month. So at the end of the month, since we are billing, we will be doing a performance testing only for the sales part, because we are billing it at the end of the month and they can run as a batch job at night also as well. So it's highly automatable as well. So you can you don't have to have any other tools. In SAP, there's a very much good capability of automating a major chunk of work inside SAP itself, and that can be taken care whenever it's like, that can run at a factory calendar sort of timings, whatever you decide. Functional testing, again, it's go hand in hand with unit testing as well as this integration testing. So basically this checks on the functionality. So if you're implementing some module, whether that module is actually checking what it needs to be checked, and that is working as expected, as per the SAP standards, as per the client standards, as per the business requirements, all those things are there. Then again, user acceptance testing is basically done by those set of users who will be using it from the client side or whoever are the end user sort of thing. And they will then, again, they will not see what you have developed. They will more see that, okay, fine, in our X system or the earlier legacy application, we used to do this work this way. Now we have to do this work this way, but whether we are getting the same output out of that. And even at this point of time also, there are like a sales order PDF or an invoice PDF will be generated, where they will check whether the address looks fine, whether all the printings, how the material looks like, whether they want to show all the details of the materials, or just they want to give some other name of the material, and that is like customer material number, the customer material info is being shown properly, the items are being captured, and the pricing conditions, what needs to be suppressed, what needs to be shown, all those things from the PDF perspective also they will now check, and they will give the feedback, and then later on as the incidents being raised, those can be taken care. And for security testing, for example, so we have this governance, risk and compliance. So we have this like maybe emergency access, you need a firefighter role, maybe your manager has gone on an emergency leave, and someone needs to do as a backfill sort of thing. So a firefighter role, and those all logs should be maintained. So since this from SAP, you can actually do some reports, and whoever is like present in the stock market, they have to do some open reporting, or they have to have some closed periods. So in interests of those, what you have to do is you have to have a security testing in place. Why? Because you already have something like you are making application secure, and nothing can go wrong here, and since you are adhering to some compliance reports or some compliances, so that's why testing on the security front also is important, wherein you can whatever report is coming out of the system, then you can stand by it, that okay, fine, I know this has been tested and this works fine. And portal testing, as we talked about, is like on the Fiori front, and since now SAP has gone the cloud route, so you can have even a web-based functionality, you can have basically an app-based sort of thing there. Okay, so now coming to the O2c flow. So basically, this is an order to cash flow. How it typically looks like uh, in SAP. So basically, you went to maybe Maruti Suzuki to just pre-book your car. So once you have done that, what the salesperson will in turn do is that person will actually enter it into the system, and that point of time, that person will create maybe a sales order. And once the person creates a sales order, maybe subsequent purchase orders in conjunction to that sales order may get triggered on, because maybe they will procure the car from somewhere and procure some other parts related to the car. Maybe you have ordered some seat covers, some flooring specifications which you have ordered. So all those things will now definitely go as a different purchase orders to different organizations, and then they will try to put that. So in turn, when these organizations will have those ready, they will deliver it to your showroom, basically. So they will create those deliveries. So this will be again done by the VL01N. They will create the delivery. And then once these deliveries are done, then there will be something called as goods receipt. So once they have done the goods issue from the, maybe the purchase orders who the vendors were of Maruti Suzuki. Now once Maruti Suzuki, once they have done the goods issue, Maruti Suzuki had to do something called as GR, or the goods receipts. So once that is done, then again here the movement types will change, the outbound delivery will happen, and then finally that will come to the showroom. And from showroom, again, you will now take the delivery out of it. Once you take the delivery, of course, you have to pay in full, correct? So once you're paying it in full, that will be again doing the accounts receivable from you. That will be again recorded in VF01. And in terms of that, once you're posting that, once someone from that backend team is posting your invoice or your check or depositing, that will again trigger some accounting documents wherein whatever was agreed on the sales order, the same amount should match. In case of there's a rounding difference or something, that should be either written off or that should be adjusted to some other GL or something. So this whole end-to-end flow basically is something called as order to cash flow. There are multiple flows like purchase to procure flow. Those are integrated tightly. There are different flows actually. So these all flows can be actually simulated in SAP in terms of transaction codes. Earlier, now also possible, but now you have S/4HANA, wherein you can even actually get out of these Tcodes and just do it by the small apps itself. Okay. So there are issues and implementation. Okay, but in the interest of time, I will quickly jump to the case studies, like wherein there was an ERP project failure. So Hershey's, we all know, it's a like a well-known chocolate company, or they produce some things. So this was like prior to Y2K. They wanted to implement SAP's R3, which we spoke about, R2 and the R3 ERP software, with another managed supply chain. This was actually this company does not work anymore. It has been taken over by Blue Yonder. Earlier it was JD, and now it's Blue Yonder. And then their CBL's customer relationship manager. So they wanted to have this architecture, and they wanted like it needed, of course, this project needed around 48 months as per the recommended timelines of SAP. But since they were in a shortfall of time, they wanted to do it in a 30 months. And based on the scheduling, because the cutover activities was like planned before 1999. And so they did not do any sort of system testing because they had to expedite the process. And as a result, all those critical data like master data and all those things, whatever flows from one system, the legacy system to another system, all those things and these integration issues, which we talked about, like since everyone is basically developing the system in silos, these integration points were never checked and they were not detected even because there was no testing happened. So how can it be even detected? So there was no detection, and they just went ahead with that implementation, of course. And then again, a classic textbook fail happened, because they tried to squeeze this complex ERP implementation architecture in a short time span with very little to no testing. This all happens in today's world as well. It's not that every day we are getting lots of time for doing SAP testing or rather any other testing. QA timelines always get stringent. If development team is pushing, and that time can be taken up by the development team. So of course, that's also a good practice wherein how to be pushy enough, and you have to have your timelines. So that way, and then definitely this went haywire. Another one which we look at it's from Whirlpool. So basically, again, so they wanted to go with and they had chosen the partner, one of the big fours, which we have mentioned here, that they were the implementation partner, and testing was not done. There was inadequate testing and all those things, and I mentioned earlier that shipments were like delayed 6 to 8 weeks, and it really caused irreversible loss, because once it has been done, the damage is already done. You cannot then go and test and get those money back. So that funds are gone, really, basically. So that happened with Whirlpool. So they ignored the go no go decision. If we relate, I'm not sure how many of you are traders, but we need to honor that stop loss sort of thing. So here also they did not honor the no go decision, and they went ahead and they incurred a huge loss in turn. So likewise, there are also multiple things, but things are shaping up. Testing takes a priority these days. We have left shift approach and all those things. We bring in the SMEs, we bring in the functional experts, and we just don't bring anyone directly into the testing like without a SAP hat, So that way, these things could now be eradicated, and there are almost a lot of best practices. And in every other organization you go right now these days, they have off the shelf some white papers or some implementation guidelines, which they will offer to the client, and they will always mention that, okay, fine, these are the timelines, 6 weeks timeline for integration testing or 4 weeks time for integration testing. And if client says no, we don't have budget, then of course you can talk about the implications, that okay, fine, if don't, these are the implications, things have gone bad or haywire in history. If you don't want to repeat yourself, please give some adequate time in the testing. But yeah, then again, you have to check on the different modules, those aspects, and a lot of things. This is just a drop, as I said, in the ocean. And when I say a drop, I literally mean it. So yeah, and we can do a lot of deep dive in different modules. We can see in the IDES maybe, but of course that attracts some licensing cost also. So yeah. So okay, I'm open for questions now. I think we are on time.
Got it, Sounak. I think 2 questions on this topic. So the first one is from Rahul. He says, it's a fundamentally a layman question. How can we get access to free SAP deployment? Are there websites where we can? So there is no playground sort of a thing. So there is no.
So there is something called as IDES. If you don't have an access, there is something called as IDES. But IDES also these days attract cost, or you can get some access. You have to pay maybe some training company. They are hosting some SAP training company who imparts SAP trainings. They are hosting their servers, and then you can, for a small fee. Maybe not a small fee, but yeah. So roughly for 20,000 rupees, you can get server access in India. That's what an off market I'm talking about. So for 20K, you can get a server access for maybe next 3 months. Likewise, so from any training company who is virtually providing SAP trainings.
Got it. I think this one you've handled, right? What are the important projects to look while at SAP HANA migration projects happen for an organization?
Not exactly, because that was like what we discussed was a drop. This is actually important factors, because I have already wrote few papers, and I have already created a lot of PPTs and strategies on this thing. So this is actually a very huge topic. But again, of course, now which modules you're implementing, a particular, and which organization. That organization is like which organization. It's a retail, it's a utility, it's a banking, and what modules are implementing, and what is the capacity, how the third party integration or the legacy system look like. So SAP is definitely there, but for example, if it's a bank, they will talk to some other systems also as well, right? For like receivables, payables, maybe insurance selling, and all those things. So all those things need to be factored in when you are trying to chalk out a test strategy or important factors into that sort of testing. So yeah.
Got it. I think in the interest of time, it's been 2 hours for a lot of people here. So I think we can end the session here. Thank you, Sounak, for this wonderful session. Again, as I mentioned, this is a huge topic which does not get covered in 1 hour. We thought it was, we hope it was useful for you to be more knowledgeable about, slightly more knowledgeable about SAP testing, and you can pursue your interest if this excites you further. I think thank you, Sounak, and thank you everyone for joining in here. There are a few more questions, I think, which we can take on Discord. So, Sounak, if you can share on the Discord channel any blogs or links which you can for people, it will be helpful. And I think
Sure.
thank you everyone for joining this session and taking 2 hours of your Saturday morning. Thank you everyone. Session.